The Dismantle the Culture podcast focuses on unraveling the layers of rape culture in the attempt of ending it on a global scale. Rape culture is as intricately woven into societal teachings and practices as systemic racism. On Dismantle the Culture, we are not afraid to call any issue by its name. The podcast provides nuanced conversations rooted in facts and, at times, anecdotal experiences. This podcast is more than an educational tool. It is an instrument for advocacy for a better tomorrow for all. The topics discussed range from consent to toxic masculinity to surviving sexual violence. Follow the podcast today and help us dismantle the culture. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Vernon T. Scott here on Dismantle the Culture. The Dismantle the Culture podcast, where we unravel rape culture one factor at a time. So today's episode, I wanted to dedicate that to cognitive dissonance. I did mention that in the first episode that I would speak on why I talk about cognitive dissonance whenever I am doing some kind of workshop related to rape culture. I do understand that there was a second episode that was published before then, but that was my dissertation defense. So I just want to have that out there for the public so that they can listen to that. But this is, though it is the third episode, this is that second episode I was talking about. So I want to start this conversation by first defining what cognitive dissonance is. So cognitive dissonance is the state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude changes. So I start workshops off by defining that for individuals because there are moments within discussing tough topics that an individual will lean more on cognitive dissonance than the actual facts of the matter. When it does come to rape culture, when you confront someone, or not even confront, but when you mention certain aspects like you do not own your spouse when you do get married to them, this hits a nerve for them, because even within the society that we live in, we still have that mentality that our spouse, our partners are individual that we have ownership of, that they are ours, that no one else has access to them because they belong to us as the individual that married them or made them our partner, things like that. So being introduced to an idea that you do not own that person will often result in some type of pushback. So I proactively inform individuals of what cognitive dissonance is so that once it does happen and I name it as what it is, they can understand what they're experiencing in that moment. Again, just to clear up the definition a little bit more, because I do know I stumbled a little bit. Cognitive dissonance is defined as the state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude changes. So the way that this may play out, some individuals, like some of the signs may be like feeling discomfort or compelled while making the decision, feeling confused and lacking clarity on a subject, or even being mistaken are being mistakenly identified as a hypocrite by other individuals. The way I like to break down cognitive dissonance in the most simplest way is thinking of a situation as being there's a mental brick wall. And whenever some new information that is different from what you've been told throughout your life, or even within the last year, or just when you're feeling very anxious and you find a sense of security in one little fact or one particular opinion, you build a brick wall to protect yourself from anything that is different from what you believed or the way that you behave. So when a person starts to touch or hammer at that brick wall, your individual's first reaction is to push back. I cannot believe that. That is a lie. I do not do this. I am not that person. whatever the case may be. And I like the example that I use about the hypocrite. Hypocrite is an individual who says one thing and does that same thing that they're against. You see this a lot in a lot of religious circles. Not to throw shade on any particular religion, but I'm speaking of personal experience on this one, where you may have a pastor who says that the church is here to help the community, yet that same church has not done anything for that community other than strip it of its money, of its financial wealth. Or you have a situation where you are, my mind is fixated on the church right now. I'm trying to use something different. So let's say you are dealing with a friend, and this friend is giving you relationship advice, saying how you should never cheat on your partner, that if you do cheat on them, that makes you less of a man, less of a woman, anything like that. However, every time you see them, they are with someone new and they're not able to hold down a stable relationship, or they're forever cheating on their partner. You're just like, how can you tell me one thing and do this other thing? And when you confront them about that, they have some kind of excuse that, oh, we're just talking. We don't have a legitimate relationship. We're just friends. So it's a way for that person to formulate an excuse to validate why their actions are not matching up to the thing that they're preaching in a way. I bring that up to introduce another concept, which is gaslighting. This is personal opinion, but I'm quite sure there's some research that will back this up, that gaslighting is a very useful tool of, what's the word I'm looking for? Gaslighting is a very useful tool for rebuilding our, not refurbishing, but remodeling. No. What is the word? Is something, not rebuilding, not refurnish. Reestablishing, no. Reinforce. There we go. That's the word. Oh my Lord. So gaslighting is a tool, well, in my opinion, gaslighting is a tool that is very useful to reinforcing cognitive dissonance, reinforcing that brick wall that the individual has built up for themselves, for them to have a sense of security in whatever a lie may be. And gaslighting is, as a definition, is a form of manipulation that often occurs in abusive relationships. It is a covert type of emotional abuse where the bully or abuser misleads the target, creating a false narrative and making them question their judgment and reality. And this happens within cognitive dissonance, where someone is so focused on reinforcing the lie that they came to know as fact or truth, in order for them to be comfortable with everything that they know is not the truth. As an example, I want everyone to think about what is actually going on with, this COVID-19 situation. And let me make this announcement before anyone comes down my throat or anything. Oh, that sounded very sexual. Before anyone comes at me and at my throat just because me mentioning COVID-19, this is not me to tell you what to do with your body, or even to spread misinformation or even validate the actual facts of COVID-19. But this is me explaining what is happening within the system of America, well, the United States. I have to remember to make sure I continue to say United States, because there's a difference between America and the United States. If you don't know that difference, I'm more than willing to explain that in a future episode, or just individually. Doesn't matter to me. But within the United States and COVID-19, there is some cognitive dissonance and gaslighting that happens there. So you have fear already present of something that is unknown. So there's hysteria about a disease that is coming. And when it comes to that disease, you are told that it's something that you should not really worry as much about. It was downplayed. We know this happened. even with making that statement, there might be some cognitive dissonance that someone's facing. If you are feeling that, I ask that you just continue in with this flow and have an open mind of what I'm telling you. This is coming from a place of love and not a place of shaming you. Because when someone does have differing opinions about certain things, it can be dismissive. A person may experience negative emotions because of that. And this is not me calling you any kind of name, calling you less than, calling you an idiot or anything like that. This is me literally just explaining a situation to you to help everyone understand cognitive dissonance. So this is going to tear at that brick wall. If you are one of those people who have a brick wall up about cognitive dissonance, not cognitive dissonance, but COVID-19, but I promise you, this is coming from a place of love. So we get to a place within this pandemic where we are thinking about fast pacing a vaccine. And there's already distrust in one side of a political spectrum, acceptance on another side, or just openness, I guess. And the distrust at this point, and I'm talking early pandemic, is due to poor leadership. And I say that as an individual who has studied leadership, who knows dysfunctional leadership when it displays. And I get that there's going to be individuals who disagree with what I'm saying, but it was poor leadership at that time in 2020. And there's also poor leadership now within 2021 in 2022. So for anyone who wants to combat that, do it on your own time. I'm not apologizing for what I said. But the truth of the matter is that there was poor leadership during 2020. And there's also some distrust of who the leader of the country was at the time, which caused a rift in accepting facts from medical providers. And also there was issues that there's a lot of shit that has to be unraveled when it comes to this. Why did I use this example? Why did I choose to use this example? Oh my Lord. So let's go with I'm just going to stick to vaccines hesitancy because there was a reason behind that. And with the vaccine hesitancy and then aligning your trust and mistrust of vaccines and science to your political beliefs, there was a lot of room for gaslighting and reinforcing cognitive dissonance within this process. You now get individuals who come out and provide additional lies to reinforce your cognitive dissonance, which saying, do not trust the vaccine, the medicine that they're producing. Trust this one thing that is not really tested and not really effective on a broader scale because we say you should do this. You should endanger your life and your health in order to prove these other individuals as being fraudulent or prove them as being liars, being less than or whatever. They are unknowledgeable. Own this type of person because F them, fuck them and their political views and their spectrum, whatever the childish shit is. I know you might be offended by that, but it is very childish. I'm calling a thing. It's childish shit. So cognitive dissonance will bring an individual to a point where they are more willing to accept a lie that just comforts them rather than accept the truth that is very unpleasant. This is why you will have the situation that we have with the Karen phenomenon. The Soliloquy podcast focuses on the variability of sexual expression. When it comes to sexual expression, we often depend on pornography to illustrate how one must perform sexually. For those who have not learned this by now, the stuff you see in porn is not real. Pornography provides a singular perspective of sexual expression that is not often the reality we see during our own sexual encounters. The Soliloquy podcast is a conversation that takes you outside of the compressed box of what many know about sex. Some of the topics we discuss includes kinks, condom usage, status disclosure, and past sexual experiences. The Soliloquy podcast steps out on sexual norms and recognizes that the norm is not the only normal. Subscribe today and join the conversation. There has always been Karens. There has always been barbecue Becky's, or whatever the case may be. This is a identity that of entitlement that has existed for quite a long time. Even back in the days of slavery. It's nothing new, this type of entitlement that you see. This entitlement goes beyond races, it goes beyond genders. It's just a person who feels so empowered within themselves that they can that they feel as though that they can treat anyone however they want to treat them, and they are above it all. When you, actually, I would have to say, it's rooted in racism in a way. But when you are confronting a Karen and calling them who they are, you get to a point where they have to now confront their cognitive dissonance. Or if you call someone a racist who is actually racist or oppressing someone, or even have the discussion about police accountability, or even the Black Lives Matter movement, and you have a feeling within you to say all lives matter, without understanding the context of why individuals are saying my life matter just as much as everybody else. Not more, not less than, but just as important as everyone else. And erase that message by saying, oh, your life doesn't matter because all lives matter. And not understanding how that is offensive to those individuals who are just trying to exist without being murdered because you're uncomfortable with their presence. Cognitive dissonance is a thing that builds a wall for you to be comfortable in that. Cognitive dissonance is a thing that tells you that an individual like Kyle Rittenhouse can shoot 3 people and walk away without any consequences, knowing that this individual was more of a threat than any individual without a gun. Cognitive dissonance is knowing that a judge forgiving or lessening a sentence for someone who is a pedophile, yet provided a very long sentence to a Black individual just for protesting that their life matters. And you're okay with the judge actions in that matter. That is how cognitive dissonance presents itself. And again, this is coming from a place of love. With having to confront these different ideologies, it can truly cause a headache. It can cause you to overload. But the thing is being open to the difference of opinion, to be open to what the facts really say. I know even within this country, there's been many arguments that I've had to have with friends, well, white friends to be specific and to be truthful, of the friends I've had to have this conversation with, that the statistics that you see about crime does not often tell the truth about what is really going on in this, society, where people will believe that Black on Black crime is a real thing and not acknowledge that crime is crime. It doesn't matter what race you are. Crime happens within proximity. Or that if you were to look at the statistics of who in this country is the most violent individuals, the answer will be heterosexual white men. And that's across the board in many crime statistics, because of that sense of entitlement that comes with that identity. And this is not me trying to shame any individual that identifies as a heterosexual white man, but this is just me just stating the facts of things. Like, even when I looked at statistics about race involving sexual assaults, there was actually when you look at total population and like how those numbers correlate, there wasn't really a significant difference amongst the data, if I remember correct. It's just rape happens, sexual assault happens. Is it decreasing? Not at all. Does one race sexually assault another race more than another? No, not at all. But sexual violence is still an issue, regardless of race. So even with making that statement, some people hold a belief that Black males are often the racial gender identity that perpetuates our perform the most rapes in this country. And that's not the case. That has never been the case. For some weird reason, well, not for some weird reason, there is a reason behind it. The reason is racism. But because of racism, there's a stigma against Black men that we are rapists. That has caused a lot of deaths in this country, a lot of false imprisonments in this country. There's a huge issue with that. So, of course, that is something that I do want to go into discussing at a later date within the podcast. But I just wanted to present some of the facts, some of the information that you will need in order to make it through this podcast. I ask individuals who do connect or engage with this podcast to come into it with a very open mind. A lot of it is going to be based in facts, also anecdotal experiences. There's a reason why I mentioned that within the opening sequence, because those anecdotal experiences do provide a little bit of context or conceptualization that you do not get within statistics. I understand stats. I understand how to read statistics, which is a part of, earning your doctorate. But I also understand the value of the anecdotal experiences, the value of case studies, the value of qualitative information or qualitative data outside of just the numbers, because that provides an additional perspective into things. I place a lot of value on the culture of things or the systems of things, because when you don't understand how a certain thing can be systemic, you don't understand, you will not see how, even when you're doing some actions to prevent that, you will never be able to change it until you change that system, because it will still perpetuate no matter what. For those who are against critical race theory, that's essentially what that does as well. It looks at the systemic issues and not the individual issues, because there are races in this country. Racism is thriving in this country. There's a whole political party that's backed by racism. So, and another one that promotes white supremacy. And someone's going to think, listen to that statement like, wait, what? No, that's what our political system is these days. Corporate interest in white supremacy is one, and racism and white supremacy is the other. So there you go. That's American politics, and of course, you have your factions within those that are actually looking for actual change, positive change. But that's a conversation for another day. So yes, if your head is hurting at this point, I do apologize. You may need a nap. And I say that from experience, because I used to work on the college campus, and I held rape culture related workshops whenever my students asked me to. So consent programs, and just even having the conversation of consent is enough to give you a headache. Most definitely if you're only looking at it from a legal aspect. And then when you throw in personal autonomy in that, it can get very, very interesting. So the next episode, as soon as I get my life together, will be on consent. Now, I want to take this time to just give everybody an idea of what to expect in the future and what's going on now. Right now, I'm just providing everybody with the introductory level information that they may need to have context on the future episodes. But I do hope to bring individuals on to the podcast to talk about these things in a more nuanced way. That's also why that's in the opening sequence. See, everything's connecting. I hope you're understanding that it's connecting. But there will be conversations of individuals within law enforcement. I'm trying to get that not established. secure the person I want for that episode. I also want to have conversations with mental health professionals, talk about the statistics there, the what they find or come across with the individuals that they deal with when it comes to sexual assault. Also get in touch with some of these organizations that help victims of sex trafficking and sexual violence. So there are big plans with this podcast that you just have to wait to see. But while I'm establishing those connections, I just want to make sure people have a general idea of where this podcast is going. Also, the general knowledge to understand the key concepts that I'm going to be referring to throughout the podcast. So it's going to be information heavy on the forefront. On the back end, you get a lot more conversations. So, well, on the front end and then back end. Look, I'm exhausted right now, but it's all good. I'm doing a lot of things right now, but I'm okay with it because I asked myself and confirmed with myself that it's okay to do this. And yes, so at this point, I do want to thank everyone for, just coming to the Dismantle the Culture podcast, listening to our episodes, and just being engaged with our content. I have some comments that I actually have to respond to, and I'm happy to see those. So definitely find us on our YouTube channel, Slater's Playhouse LLC on YouTube. Feel free to ask as many questions you want. I'm here to answer, clear up any kind of doubt, or clear up any information that you do not understand. And even if need be, while I'm waiting on getting these connections together, I don't mind answering these questions either on a live session or even through a coaching session, because Slater's Playhouse does have coaching, so you can always reach me that way too. That is a fee, but if you're trying to reach me for free, I can see what I can do about YouTube lives, and well, I do want to be monetized before then too. But yeah. If you do want to support the podcast, as I mentioned in episode 1, I am working towards building an online course. You can donate to that course by going to Slater's Playhouse LLC. I will also have a link included to the donation page on the show notes, as well as on the YouTube channel, so you can find it there. It's on the website. I'm going to have it everywhere for people to access. If you find Slater's Playhouse on Instagram, it's in the bio. You can find Slater's Playhouse or Slater's Play on Twitter. The link is in that bio as well. If you want to donate. If you know someone who would like to donate to the cause, feel free to have them donate. Send them the link. I would desperately and gratefully appreciate that. But yeah, the goal is to make a very comprehensive course that discuss rape culture in a way that many individuals can understand. And in order to do that, there is research that needs to be purchased, books that need to be purchased, and talent that needs to be hired to make sure that it comes out the way that I want it to. And I've already started with building out the curriculum for that too. So that's been very exciting. I love doing that though. But other than that, like, share, subscribe, comment, engage with us. This is the Dismantle the Culture podcast, where we unravel the factors of rape. Whoa, I just messed that up. This is the Dismantle the Culture podcast, where we unravel rape culture one factor at a time. Thank you so much for being with us. Much love. Thank you for listening to the Dismantle the Culture podcast. This podcast focuses on unraveling the layers of rape culture in the attempt of ending it on a global scale. It is more than an educational tool. It is an instrument for advocacy for a better tomorrow for all. If you wish to support, you can subscribe to the podcast through your favorite podcasting app, or donate to Slater's Playhouse by going to slatersplayhouse.com. That's SLAYTORS, playhouse.com. Support today and help us dismantle the culture.